What's happening, good people? TG here, coming at you live from the Virgin Hotel in Nashville because the Macro Dirt podcast must go on. We're going to record Macro Dirt podcast number 45 with my man, Jared D's Nuts Dillian. What's going on, brother?
What's up, Pecker Sniffer?
Pecker Sniffer is in the house. Let's get right into the markets here. First, though, JD, May 5th, Cinco de Mayo, back in 1862, the Mexicans defeated the French in the Battle of Puebla. That's a symbol of Mexican resilience and also a great reason to appropriate their culture, which I laugh a lot at. Are we keeping you awake here? Are you a little tired from the conference?
I am tired from the conference.
Okay, well, get some coffee. Okay, and let's wake up and get to work here. I'm on vacation, for fuck's sakes, and I want to talk about markets. First, May 5th, four things in history happened. I want you to riff on one of them. First, in 1821, Napoleon died. 1891, Carnegie Hall officially opened in New York. 1904, Cy Young throws the first perfect game. 1925, May 5th, John Scopes was arrested in Tennessee for teaching evolution. Holy smokes.
Wow. I mean, being a baseball guy, I got to go with Cy Young throws the perfect. I did not know that Cy Young threw the first perfect game.
Pretty badass, right?
Yeah, I would say his record of 511 wins is never going to be broken.
Oh my God, unbelievable,
Yeah.
And you got to give him a little bit of a, he was probably hitting against, some of the tamer athletes and people that have ever come up to the plate, but still, that is pretty ferocious. I would pick Napoleon dying because he's got one quote, a favorite of mine that goes so hard. You want to hear it?
Yeah.
Religion is what keeps the poor from murdering the rich.
Well,
that one goes hard. I like that.
yeah.
So JD, the way I'm framing the markets is we're in this battle royale zone in the S&P between 5,600 and 5,850. Nobody, including me, knows any fucking idea which way it's going to wind up going. But I think that this is going to be a serious back and forth level here, and I'm anxious to see how it pans out. What do you think?
I think higher than lower. I
Yeah.
do think we get up between 5,800 and 6,000. I do think we consolidate up there. I think it's going to be a quiet summer, and then everything falls apart in the fall. That's what I think. That's the thesis.
Interesting.
So today SPOs are down 0.5%, 0.6%. There's a lot of weird macro stuff going on. Like the Taiwan dollar ripped 7%. And it's causing causing a big sell-off in the dollar globally, which is kind of disconcerting for me because I was playing the dollar for a bounce. What else is going on? Yeah, it's kind of a weird macro day.
Yeah, it is. It's interesting to see gold trying to like get back on its horse here. Stocks are kind of nowhere land. Like I said, this is just going to be a back and forth. One thing that I've been keying on though is that the VIX has been melting due to several comments out of the administration that shouldn't shock anybody, right? First, it was the percent comment that it's America first does not mean America alone. Then just I guess this morning or last night, Trump said that he could be walking back tariffs sooner rather than later. And I think that this stuff is what they're doing knowingly and willingly to try to restore a little confidence back in the tape. So, like you said, I think higher, and then I don't know because I'm the kind of guy that says, yeah, I think higher. And then if we kind of get above the moving averages and selling doesn't materialize, then we're going to resume the bull market and the S&P is going to run 700-800 points. And that's a scenario that I'm looking for. We had a good call in oil. In the low 60s. Yeah, in the low 60s there, we felt like it could be due to get smacked a little bit. It traded down to a low of like 55 something. OPEC is talking about raising production again. And I like this as a tax cut for the stock market kind of thing. Do you have any thoughts, JD?
Well, I mean, for sure, like nobody should be talking about inflation right now. Like, as you know, I've been a big deflationist or disinflationist. Like, I've been saying that inflation was coming down. I said that the last CPI prints were going to be soft. Like, inflation continues to come down. There's going to be like when now that oil broke the bottom of the range, I am bearish. Okay. I'm not trading it because I only trade commodities from the long side. When commodities are this cheap, I'm not shorting commodities, right? I only trade them from the long side, but I'm bearish. I think oil could get into the 40s. I think it could go below that, Um, so it's I think you could see gasoline in the one handle in parts of the country, you know?
Mm, mm. Man, I love what that would do for the economy, and I couldn't agree more. And that just all I could say is that it just agrees with the chart, right? We had a 3-year range bottom at 61, $62 that we broke down below. We retraced up into that level and failed again. So if you're going to lean one way in oil, I think you got to be leaning lower, man. I think that the lowest prices have not been uncovered yet. So we'll see if we get a test of 50, and we'll see what happens from there. Um, Yields are ticking a little bit higher this morning. What do you think of bonds, JD?
Yeah, I mean, just a little bit. Bonds are mostly kind of unch. I was bullish for a while, and now I'm kind of neutral. Um, I mean, there's two parts to this. One is the inflation piece, and inflation is coming lower, which is positive for bonds. But at the same time, Doge hasn't really done a lot. There hasn't really been deficit reduction. Trump is talking about tax cuts. Interest expense is actually running above where it was last year. The deficits are actually getting bigger, not smaller, right? So the supply picture for bonds is worse than it was before the election. Like, that's the part that has me nervous about bonds. So
I totally get it. I don't really have a view other than a longer term view that, we're not going to crack through new lows in bonds and send, 10-year yields through 5.5% or anything like that. But anything can happen in the short term. I really have no axe to grind whatsoever. Rather, I'm spectating with a large popcorn in that arena. Um, What do we think of gold, JD? I'm still biased to the downside, quite honestly. I mean, it's going to be a slow moving move lower because there are buyers on the way down, but I still think that we can trade into the moving averages at 3,100 or so.
yeah, I mean, I think it kind of depends on the dollar. If you get a bounce in the dollar, which I'm expecting, I still think the dollar should. I think the DXY should go to 102 and a half, 103 at a minimum. You get a bounce in the dollar, you're going to get gold down to 3,100, 3,000, somewhere around there.
Hmm.
Today the dollar is down about half a click and gold is $80 higher, which makes sense. So I really think it has to do with the dollar. And I'm kind of spectating too here. Like, I don't really have a view. I mean, I have a core long position in gold that I've had for 20 years, but I'm not, I don't really have a short term view here. So,
Yeah. Yep. Nope. That's fair. That's fair. I'm looking at the Bitcoin chart, which has looked exceedingly good. I call it a blue sky breakout when it gets back up above all the major moving averages in a bull trend and looks like it wants to resume that bull trend. Today we're pulling back towards 94K. I see massive support at like 90 to 92K. Any thoughts on the cryptocurrency, JD?
for the first time in a long time, if ever, Bitcoin is acting more like gold and less like Google.
Mm,
It's acting less like the Mag 7. Like, you used to say, like, people would say, why the hell would I get Bitcoin for diversification when all it does is track tech stocks? It just tracks the NASDAQ. And for the first time, it's actually behaving like a store of value.
yeah.
Like, when stocks went down 17% or whatever, Bitcoin actually held in there, and it's kind of trading alongside gold. So that makes me more bullish on it for sure.
I agree that since this most recent Liberation Day Thursday hell breaking loose kind of thing, that Bitcoin has decoupled from being a levered bet on US tech stocks kind of thing. You know what I mean? So that's important. As a trader, you want to make sure you notice those little sea changes because those are the things that, sometimes your brain forgets to adjust for and you wind up getting clocked because you forgot that it doesn't trade, like a levered bet on the NASDAQ anymore. So, um, what else are we talking about in the markets, JD? Anything that we're missing? I want to make sure that we're thorough and not being lazy just because I'm on the road here.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to talk about private equity a little more. I mean, the evidence is accumulating that private equity is totally screwed. I actually saw today that Skechers got bought by private equity. I just saw the notification on my phone. 3G Partners bought Skechers for like $63 a share.
Oof.
Um, that's but Skechers, by the way, is a really interesting company. TG, have you ever been to Manhattan Beach,
I've been there, sure.
California?
Yeah,
Yeah.
of course.
So right in the middle of Manhattan Beach is the Skechers headquarters. Like it's a beach town. There's like yoga studios and Pilates studios. I mean, it's a very wealthy town. And right in the middle of it is this big building that is the Skechers headquarters. And
Wow.
this company has scared bankruptcy a couple of times in its past. Got down to like $2 a share, $3 a share. Now they have their step in shoes. But like for 63, I don't know what the market cap is. It's got to be like 4 to 6 billion or something like that. But this is a big private equity takeout, you know.
Wow. Yeah. I don't have a view. What do you think? Where does the private equity story like unwind, JD? Like we're kind of looking for it to get weaker and eventually implode on itself. But what do we, what are the signs? What other signs are we looking for?
I mean, we're starting to see some of the signs. You're looking at people are selling private credit at 70 cents on the dollar in the secondary markets, right? So people are asking the question, like, if you're selling private credit for 70 cents on the dollar, then what the hell does that mean about the marks on private credit, right? If it's trading in the secondary market at 70 cents, why are we marking it at a dollar? You know?
Mm. Hmm.
So, and the same thing about like Yale's getting rid of 6 billion and Harvard's getting rid of 1 billion. Like those are going to trade at a big discount. Like what does that say about the marks? That's the real question.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Good point. Good point. Because eventually they are going to not be able to mark themselves to market at a favorable price anymore, and it's going to be a collapse of the whole house of cards, I would imagine. But I'm not smart enough to know when or how that happens. Right. What else? Anything market wise?
Well, we covered gold. Yeah, I think
Covered
that's it.
oil. Kind of is. We made it around the horn. If we're going to turn into anything right now, JD, we have got to talk about the Dirt Conference that we just had down in Pawleys Island that you just threw. Congratulations on that. That was a tremendous success. What a great roster of speakers that you had covering a really wide and diverse range of material. That was really what blew me away. There was a lot of stuff covered other than just markets and stock calls and things like that. So that's really what made it fulfilling for me.
Yeah, we had some really amazing speakers. I mean, Chance Saran filled in at the last minute and slayed it with his piece on bureaucracy and regulation. Like that
Yeah.
was one of the best presentations. Paul Ollinger, stand-up comedian, but also like not only was he hilarious, it was incredibly thought-provoking, right? It was an
Hmm.
incredibly thought-provoking presentation. Grant Williams spoke. Dude, he scared the shit out of everybody in the room. Everyone's like, "Oh my god, like sell everything, buy gold." Like,
Yeah.
I mean, it was one of the most compelling presentations I've ever seen. Brad Bechtel, like the FX master, like anytime he talks, like I'm kind of an FX tourist, like he has been in that business for like 30 years. Like he
Yeah.
knows more. I mean, the number of Tom Morgan talking about like spirituality and AI and stuff like that. It was all
Oh,
incredible.
yeah. Wait a minute. Wait, let's not leave out Mark LaPaula, who came up and literally went. I mean, this is a guy that's famous for making big, big calls in financial markets, and he comes up and starts talking about the battle between good and evil that is taking place and how we just traded a blow off top in the evil side that has been
Yep.
trying to take over. Like, holy smokes, like there is an awareness about that. I mean, this guy is calling for a 500-year cycle ending right now. Not ending, it already ended, and
Yeah.
we're about to see a huge swing back of the pendulum. And man, I was literally riveted to that conversation. Like, I can't even tell you, and I have a lot of follow-ups for him. Um, so that was it, man. You deserve a lot of credit. It was a lot of fun. You threw a great party at your pad after that. We took a great photo, which I'm going to have Braden flash up here on the screen in front of Chateau Dillian.
So the
And
the Chateau Dillian. So when this is released on May 6th, I will have been in the house for 1 year. I moved in the house May 6th of 24. What'd you
Wow.
think? What'd you think of the house? I love the house.
I didn't
It's
get to see the house. I got to see the yard. I thought the yard was nice. Yeah, you know what I mean? You're not getting credit for the house yet because I haven't seen it. You know, you had a party and we were all locked out onto the yard, which I totally understand. But we can't do full house credit on that yet. I thought it was beautiful though. The yard, I can't wait to come up and crash there for a couple of days. I mean, the backyard looks heavenly. It's a gorgeous looking place. Your house is just astounding, and it looks like it sits on like a really beautifully, like heavily wooded area that looks like a sanctuary.
yeah.
You know, it's really, really pretty back there. So that was a lot of fun. What I tell you, I got to give you a lot of credit for getting people out at 9 o'clock on the nose, like you said you were going to. You know, somebody started flashing the lights at 8:55, and I was looking at Grant Williams, and Grant looks at me, he goes, "He's fucking serious, isn't he, man?" You know, because if you would have tried to do that at my house, my friends would have been in your bedroom drinking Heinekens out of the bottle. You know what I mean? And smoking butts in your kitchen. There would have been no, okay, goodbye, you know. So
Dude, I had to, we had a lot of cleaning up to do, and I wanted to get a full night's sleep before the next day of the conference, you know.
yeah, yeah. No, I totally get
So,
it. The musical performer was great. That guy playing a
Zach Penn.
nylon string guitar was really, really good.
Yep.
And he ripped out a killer version of Blue on Black, which was really, if you had to be paying attention to catch that. Um, but he was a talented, talented guy. And so great job, man. Great job. I really look forward to it. And what announcement did you make about about the Dirt conference again?
Yeah, so we've done it for 6 years in a row at Pawleys Island at the Litchfield Beach and Golf Resort. You know, it's a decent venue. It's not too big. It's intimate. We can fit about 100 people. But going forward, we are going big time with the conference. The next conference is going to be in Nashville in the fall of 26, and it's going to be 2.5 times as big. We're going to have 250 people. So if you want to go to the conference, you just heard everything Tony said about the conference, how incredible it was. If you want to go, sign up for the Macro Dirt. You have to be a daily Dirt Nap subscriber to go to the conference.
There you go. There it is. And if you're going to move this thing from sleepy Pawleys Island to Nash Vegas, USA, I'm going to tell you, you're going to get 10 times more people trying to make claw their way into this thing as you
Yep.
had for the first 6 years. That's for sure. By the way, can I get a grade on my goddamn performance? A guy named TG
Oh yeah,
Macro
hell
spoke as
yeah.
well.
Dude, you are a very compelling presenter. Like, I mean, just I first of all, this is the second time you spoke. You spoke 3 or 4 years ago, something like that.
Mhm.
And like, when I looked around the room when you were speaking, dude, everybody is locked on to you, locked on, paying 100% attention.
Oh,
You
good.
know, like you are a
Good.
very, very good speaker. I'm, it was funny. I was watching you and I was watching Paul Ollinger, probably, I would say the two best speakers. And I'm a little bit jealous because my presentation skills are pretty average, certainly not bad, but I would say average. And I got to work on my game. Like, I got to work on my game a little bit. I got to practice. I got to come up with some jokes. You know, like it was great.
I love you for that, JD. I love you for that. I have learned that it's important about being engaging. And this time, I tried to kind of not talk as much. I tried to not lean on my charts as much, but kind of talk to people, and you know, relay some experiences that I've had and things like that. And I think it translated pretty well. So I'm excited about that.
By the way,
Anyway,
the last time you spoke at DirtCon, like 3 or 4 years ago, you called the top in Disney.
yeah,
Do you remember
yeah.
that?
Yeah, I do, and that was kind of accidental. You know what I mean? Like, you kind of put a gun. Somebody, we had a gun to my head, and it was like, you know, make some stock picks and things like that. And I was like, all right. I mean, if I got to make a big picture call here, I think go woke, go broke just started, and that was it, right? I think that was the
Yep.
call that I made. I think that's what it was
Yeah.
based on, right? Yeah.
Yep.
So it turned out to be right. And you know what? The best part, two things awesome happened to me at your conference that I just want to talk about because they're good subject matter. First, somebody recognized that the DEI is dead call that I made. They came up to me and they were like, dude, that was unbelievable. You know, when the Boeing door flew off the plane, I wrote an essay that's on Substack about how DEI is all going to go away. And then fast forward a year later, and they're canceling DEI problems at DEI programs at every college in the country. So I got a couple of props for that. And then JD, literally, you know, going to these conferences and getting out of the office is the reason that you go and interact with people, right? As humans, we are meant to interact with each other. And the conference is just an amazing place to meet some people that you've never met before. I had somebody say to me one of the most impactful things that a stranger ever said to me. He came up and he said, you know, one of your Macro Dirt podcasts, JD asked you what you were like most proud of, and listening to you talk to your kids, talk about your children, was one of the most awesome things that I ever heard. And I was like, oh my God, dude, thank you so much for saying that. Do you have kids of your own? And he goes, no, no, I don't. But now I feel like I kind of know what it would feel like. And I was like, that was like a really heavy thing to say to somebody, you know, and I just appreciated him for that, his honesty and the fact that he had the courage to call out and say something like that to me. So that was really filled my heart. That was worth the price of admission going to the trip
Yeah.
right there, man. Really was wholesome. And I don't think of a better way to end this podcast than announcing that you're doing your next conference in Nashville than with an Hasta La Vagina. We'll see you next week.
Hasta La Vagina.
Hasta La Vagina from Nashville, good people.